I just want to call to order the February 12th Richmond Community Schools regular board meeting. So please rise for the stating of the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will now ask for the reading of the mission and vision statement.
Mission statement: Richmond Community Schools guide students on pathways of learning to a future of limitless possibilities.
The vision statement: a collaborative community nurturing mind, body, and spirit to prepare students for lives of choice, purpose, and service.
Thank you. Moving on to celebrations. Dr. Wright.
Madam President, trustees, I'm going to ask that Mrs. Bridget Hazelbaker, our Director of Student Support and Communications, join us to celebrate tonight's honorees.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We have two celebrations tonight. We will be celebrating the district's spelling bee winners, and we also will be celebrating the Richmond High School girls varsity wrestling team. So first, I would like to call our spelling bee winners. We recently had, and I don't see one of them. Can you come on up here for me, mister? So our first place winner was Bria Robinson. She's a fourth grader from Fairview. Second place was Cadence Brandon. He's a fourth grader at Westview. And then third place was Sirius Matthews, and she's a fourth grader at Fairview as well. Here last year, she also got first place last year as a third grader, and as again a first place winner. I received confirmation that they were coming tonight, but something must have come up. So Cadence is he's going to tell you a little bit about himself, who he brought with him tonight, and he's just a little nervous, but I think he's got it. So
He's got it. He's got
it. Go ahead. Here, but yeah, stand over this way a little bit so they can see you. Good. Go ahead. So you guys have any questions for him?
Spell dichotomy. That's okay. I can't do it either.
I've got a question. Cadence, do you remember the last word on the spelling bee this year?
No, I do not.
You do not? Okay. I was trying to remember. I think it was maybe tonsils. Does that sound right? No, not really. Okay. I was trying to remember because I remember it was, yeah.
All right. It's
the last one.
Come on up here. Thank you.
Maybe she'll remember.
Yeah, they're going to their jacket off. Pictures. I know this is old school for you. Already done this before. All right. So, again, just come up here and tell them your name and what school you go to, what grade you're in.
I'm Fred, and I'm from Fairview Elementary, and I'm in fourth grade.
And who is your teacher?
Miss Chris.
And who is your principal?
Miss Service.
And Cadence, who is your teacher?
Miss Jean.
And who is your principal?
Mr. Smith.
Good. And now, do you remember what word that you had to win?
Phantom.
Phantom. Nice.
I have a question. I'm wondering what kind of preparation you did, or how did you practice and prepare for this? Because it seemed like you guys both were very well prepared for it. So what did you do to get ready for this?
Around every night, we would study, and then on the last day, before we came, I was very nervous. So as soon as I got home, I studied like 3 of the pages. I studied pretty much the whole thing, and the words that I was having trouble with, I wrote down and said them. The letters.
Okay. And now, what happens next? You go on for regionals, or how does that like? What happened last year? Did you go on to a different spelling bee?
Yeah, I went to Ball State.
To Ball State. And so you'll be heading to Ball State again this year?
Question. So when you're in front of the microphone and it's your turn to spell a word, if it's a really difficult word and you're just a little bit unsure of it, what do you do to focus and concentrate to bring it back together for you?
Which one of us?
Both of you, actually.
If I don't know it, I ask for a spelling or definition, and while we're saying that, I try to think of the spelling of the word.
Is there a particular term or word that you all were fearful that you were going to get and were happy that you got?
There was a few. I don't remember them though.
And you don't have to because you won anyway. And that's what it's all about. Nevertheless, Mr. Cadence, I'm curious to know your classmates. and also Farah as well. The question: your classmates, do they now see the fame that you all received after being winners, and are they encouraged to maybe take part in the spelling bee for next year, or are they a little fearful because the competition is so stiff because you all are so good?
I am not sure because they haven't said anything about the spelling bee. Most of my friends don't want to do it though because they say there's too many words.
I see. Okay.
Now, how did you do at your own spelling bee at your own school? What place did you get at your school?
I got second this time.
You did. And what place did you get at Westview?
Same, second.
Second?
Wait, no, third.
Oh, you got third.
Yeah.
Okay.
And who did you have with you tonight?
Yeah. Who'd you guys bring with you tonight?
My dad.
Your dad. And who did you bring with you, Cadence?
My mom, my dad, and my brother.
Let's definitely give them a round.
Can you guys? Yeah, there's somebody who.
There they are. Yeah.
We're gonna walk over here real fast and get a photo of the Dr. Wright and thank you. We have a stand right over there by the light. It's real fast. Thank you.
Yes.
Let's give me a smile. Here we go. Congratulations. Thank you. All right. Do we have any of our wrestlers telling you the number? I'm hearing crickets. Oh, you did. Good. All right. So, Lady Red Devil, will you come up here and join me, please? All right. So, I would like to celebrate and honor our Richmond High School girls varsity wrestling team. So, I'm going to have them come up and introduce themselves as well. Coach Hanley's here. He's the head varsity coach for the team, and really has a great group of girls here. So,
First of all, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Just wanted to let you know we have 4 of our ladies not able to be here today. Two of our assistant coaches aren't here either. Jess Moore and Marty Silver, who works with the younger group of teenage girls. So I just wanted to let you guys know that there's more of us, and I'm gonna turn it over and I'm gonna sit down and let them introduce themselves. I do want to highlight that 5 of the girls went to regionals, which was 1 step away from state this year. And Claire, I'll make sure you tell them about your accomplishment as well.
all right, go ahead and step on up, ladies. You guys can step up as a group. You're all together. You don't feel.
Don't approach it like you did the wrestling match, but just
Yeah.
be gentle with the microphone.
All right, so can you guys go one by one and just say your name and what grade you're in?
I'm Claire. I'm a junior. I'm Embria. I'm a junior. I'm Deshauna. I'm a sophomore.
I'm Marley. I'm a freshman.
I'm Keisha. I'm a freshman.
I'm Jackson. I'm a freshman.
I'm Elise. I'm a freshman.
I'm Geneva. I'm a sophomore.
I'm Calissa. I'm a freshman.
I'm Maddie, and I'm a junior.
I'm Amaya James, and I'm a sophomore.
Great. All right, so tell us a little bit about how you guys got into how you guys get into the wrestling program and what I mean. This is a brand new, right? I mean, tell me what was this like? Who wants to speak? Or who did you guys vote for someone to speak?
I think it was a really good opportunity for all of us, and I think it was really fun, and it changed a lot of us mentally and our mindsets, and it built our confidence within ourselves. And we connected as a group and created new bonds. All of us are like really friendly things.
Wow.
And now we all know that we have support and have people backing us even whenever I get on.
I think how most of us got into it was just Claire and Amaya, right? Just reaching out to girls around the school. Hey, would you like to do this? Like it's a new activity. It's new to all of us, except for Claire. And Amaya was the manager last year. Yeah, and so they knew some about it, and they just kept reaching out to girls across the school, and it was great.
It grew a lot more than I actually hoped it would, so this is really nice.
I also think Mr. Hanley did a very good job advocating for us and reaching out to girls as well, because I had no idea about it, and I found out through him. And he encouraged a lot of girls very aggressively to.
So tell me, there's also middle school. I understand now.
Yes.
So how's that going? Have you guys mentor the younger girls yet? Have you met the junior high players?
We haven't met them, but we
Some of them.
Yeah, some of us have went to one of the tournaments, and it looks like it's going really good. And yeah,
I think it's gonna be a really good thing.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
want to know. Okay.
I want to hear about Claire's accomplishments that were kind of alluded to.
So I just recently won first team academic all state.
Congrats.
And I've been wrestling for 3 years. I've made it to semi-state twice. I plan on going to state next year. I really tried to bring these girls together because I see that they enjoy wrestling as much as I do, and I just really like the connection and bond I've established with them.
Yeah, I just want to say when I saw the first picture on the website of how many girls there were, I was like, I actually just smiled, right? You know, it's the first year, and you know, I think it's one of those things that people can be timid about. So just kudos for you guys to even for coming out and just giving it your all. And I feel like you guys were so successful and just super proud.
Thank you, Kate.
The courage. And I'm sorry, Mr. Brown.
You go ahead.
No, it's the courage that you all continue to exhibit, and I know we spoke about it when I visited with you all earlier this year. The courage that you all continue to exhibit. First inaugural year, you are the first. That's remarkable to say. First RHS girls wrestling team, and to know that you've had so much success from the beginning. Again, kudos to you all. Kudos to your parents and guardians that have allowed and entrusted Coach Hanley and our athletics program and allowing you all to participate. But most importantly, that fierce competitiveness that you all exhibited throughout the course of the year, and the fact that, as was already alluded to, the fact that you all continue to stay together and that you all started and finished the season. It's only going to grow from this point. As a girl dad myself, I can't wait to bring my daughter in so that you all can roll her around. There's some times in which she does things that she shouldn't do.
She is
And
way too sweet. There's no way.
she has folks cool.
I think it's important too that you guys are student athletes. I mean,
That's right.
Your eligibility. I mean,
That's right.
You know, I mean, you guys have done great things. So congratulations.
Making all of us proud.
Congratulations.
I was just gonna say, I'm in awe. I'm so impressed with your mental toughness and your physical toughness and just being, starting something. For me, when I think back in high school, it was just never an idea that a girl would be wrestling. And so, I mean, we just have teams. And so I'm so excited for you guys and what you're establishing. So thank you. And thank you to Mr. Hanley and the other coaches too for encouraging you.
And I do want to say I wish Miss Moore was here. I've talked to her numerous times so we could give her kudos because, you know, she really was a, high level girls wrestler. And, I know she really worked hard to pave the way too and advocating. So.
All right. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Do you want to get a photo again?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
never mind. Just congratulations. You're very articulate. But one of the most important things was the fact that you talked about bonding together and becoming friends and becoming a family. I think that is one of the most important things that I heard tonight. Your accomplishments are going to continue, but the friendships last forever, and you'll be able to say 20 years from now, we were the group that started it, and we stayed strong. So I congratulate you.
Oh, right here. They're gonna come right here. Put on these.
There's no video.
Right
And they're wrestlers, so I don't have to put a hand off right now.
here.
We can actually turn things. Coach, come on in. You can't, you can't give them away. You can both get the other side.
Here we go.
Here.
Scoot together a little bit more. Good. 1, 2, 3. It's your one's face. Yes. Thank you.
Great job. Congratulations.
So I did want to give a special shout out to Chartwell's. If you all, so basically Chartwell's won the Meltdown Chili Cook-Off. So I know you all are sitting out there, but please help yourself. They brought chili. To help yourself.
You guys hear me? Is that better? Please help yourself to a sample of chili while you're sitting here. Don't be scared if you're getting up. We want you all to be able to experience it.
No, no.
Do we have any representatives from Hartwell's?
They were here. They sat up, and because they love operating successfully in the shadows, they chose just to watch from afar, and they appreciated everyone's commending efforts. But yes, we definitely know why they won the meltdown challenge. And if you haven't already had some, please, that chili is great.
Yes, take some to go.
Yes.
Great. Moving on, public commentary. Cindy, do we have anyone signed up? We did. Okay.
And Madam President, and trustees, interesting enough, our first commentator to the public microphone will be Mr. John McHugh and Mr. Watt. They are from Sorrel Student Transit. They just happened to be here for a meeting earlier this afternoon to tour the corporation and also just to introduce Mr. Waddle, which Mr. McHugh will do. And they found out we were having a business meeting and asked if they could come in and just, if nothing else, sit and get, or if they had opportunity to. And I told them that can't put them on the agenda, but anyone can approach the public commentary microphone. So,
Yes.
McHugh.
Let me read my little spiel really quick, and then you guys have your 5 minutes. So those who wish to comment at this evening's board meeting, the maximum time will be 5 minutes. Please keep your comments fact-based within the time permitted. Comments are not to be personally directed or abusive. Comments recognizing the work of staff and students are always welcome. However, critical remarks concerning specific school personnel or students are to be made through the complaint process available in policy 9130. School board members do not respond to public comments during the meeting, but the board president will send you a personal follow-up email. Please state your name and address before speaking. So your names and
Okay, my name's John McHugh. I'm the president and CEO of Solidar Holdings, which owns Student Transit. And with me, I have Dave Waddle, who was just promoted to our VP of operations over the holding company. So it's great to see you all this evening. And we just come kind of, again, I happen to be in town dealing with some issues, not issues, actually good things going on at the bus garage. And, just thought if there's an opportunity to come over and share that with you and the community in which we all serve, I didn't think it could hurt. So, with that being said, being a former wrestler, I wrestled a lot growing up. I did a lot of jujitsu and stuff of that nature. I have 3 daughters, and seeing what I just saw there, it's pretty awesome. Doing a lot of that stuff, wrestling. One, you get to know what you're made of, and you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, and then to get comfortable, right? And so, how do you manage that? I recommend everybody wrestle. It's a beautiful sport, and I love it. It's something that has taught me more about myself and leadership. Because again, you are a part of the community, but then when you're out there, it's you against another person, which is very helpful as you grow, as an adult. So with that being said, kind of a praise report, really. Last time, where were we and where are we at now? So we had met with, it's been months ago. And there were some challenges, right? There were some staffing challenges. There were some on-time performance challenges. There were, just sickness and all these things going on, reporting challenges. Mind you, the last 2 weeks have been a bit of a challenge because of sickness. And everybody's been dealing with the sickness going around. But I am pleased to report that the rerouting that we shared with this group has been very successful. Phone calls and complaints are down. If you check your social media, it's basically quiet, which is we all love. Our community is getting served very, very well. So I just and recruitment's up. We actually have people calling us. We've got people in class. It's very exciting, and we do appreciate the support of this board, and we really do appreciate the support and being aligned with Dr. Wright and giving some guidance, holding accountability. Now the reporting has kind of slacked off a bit, and the reason for that. On kind of the on-time performance and what that is a reformatting. So bringing Dave Waddle in, Dave is a 26-year military veteran, comes with a ton of experience. I've taken more of the mindset of kind of the Steve Jobs, right? It doesn't make sense to hire experts and then tell them what to do. Once you just hire experts and support them, don't ask them how you support them. And so, with that being said, he's come in, he's realigned the team. Out the bus garage in a very positive way. The morale is probably higher than it's ever been, and he's only been doing this for a month, maybe. And so it's been a real breath of fresh air. So with that, I'd like to give him the opportunity to actually share with you his vision, where he's going with his time.
Thank you, board members, Dr. Wright, Ms. Scout. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. As John had said, I've been with the company a mere 120 some days. John brought me in to help put everything in their solve problems. I had the rare opportunity of spending Monday afternoon with Miss Scout and seeing all the schools. I got an opportunity to go around, see all the schools. As many of you know, there was an incident that happened Monday afternoon. I got to see that firsthand. I got to see how Miss Scout, the transportation department, the schools, the police department, everybody worked together. We were able to move the buses in a safe zone and make sure our ultimate thing, which is the kids, are safe and secure. That's the most important thing. Our kids are our future. We, as all of us here and adults, have the ability to forge the future for them. Do we want it to be a positive or do we want it to be a negative? We have the ability to change that. And one of the things that I want to see with the buses is I want to get consistent routes. I want to see the drivers.
30 seconds remaining. Sorry.
Thank you. And I'll make this real quick. As a kid growing up, and I was sharing this with Dr. Wright, is I grew up in a small community in southern Indiana. I was on the same route with the same driver 9 years of my school. That's important. We are the first sight of those kids of Richmond County School or Richmond Community Schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else? Mark Price.
Good evening, Mark Price, Richmond High School teacher. Thank you for allowing me the time to express one of the deep concerns of Richmond Education Association. First, I'd like to share one of the explicit goals of the Indiana State Teachers Association, and by extension, REA. First and foremost, we view our relationship between central office and the teaching staff to be collaborative. We know that our goals, increasing student achievement and engagement, implementation of instruction and curriculum, making RCS the preeminent choice for education in our area, none of those goals can be achieved without all of us working together. Collaboration is paramount, and we welcome that collaboration as we know that there are a myriad of ideas among stakeholders, and then that diversity will only make the process and the outcomes better. Unfortunately, one of the most impactful stakeholders we feel, the teaching staff, has been discarded and ignored. This disregard is interpreted by many to be an apparent distrust or skepticism toward unions or collective action. Let me explain. Since the summer of 2023, after legislation was passed that no longer mandated discussion between school corporations and their local associations, collaboration and communication at RCS has deteriorated and suffered greatly. There is no direct line from our members to central office, and thus there's no longer communication in the truest sense of the word. Communication requires the mutual transmission and reception of information. All we are now is a single transmitter and a receiver. It's one-way traffic, and any evidence that you've been given to the contrary is not completely accurate. The game of telephone that we now play, the open forum, it's an intentionally inefficient tool. It's designed to ensure that information has the opportunity to be edited or rearranged if or when it makes its way to central office. The remedy to this inefficiency is to reopen that direct line of communication and restart our corporate discussions. We understand that there are apprehensions about the commitment, especially the time commitment necessary for corporate discussion. Trust me, we don't want those marathon sessions either. But continuing to run away from direct contact is only going to continue to strain an already strained relationship. Thus, committing to regular corporate discussion, as every district that I know of across the state still does, will pay dividends in rebuilding that collaborative relationship. I'm sure that not many feel that the format was perfect. I've asked, it's not. And it doesn't have to be the exact same as it was. Yet there are ways to ensure that discussions can flow more efficiently. We could use Pareto voting as a way to streamline or narrow topics. And we're willing to hammer out details to make that happen. But again, that would take the collaboration and communication that we're missing. A two-way street. In the end, the open forum is an inefficient and limited tool. Discussions that need to be held regarding the present and the future of the district, that's a square peg to open forum's round hole. They don't fit. Open forums don't allow for real communication to occur, and collaboration is not engendered in that forum. REA looks forward to the prospect of reopening those direct lines of communication. Again, and we would love to see that communication take place regularly and on our collective terms, not a venue of last resort such as the School Board of Trustees meeting. Thank you again for your time, and we look forward to that opportunity for future collaboration.
Next, we have Kylie King.
Oh, fantastic. I definitely want to follow Mark Price after we talk. I'm Kylie Coombe. I currently teach kindergarten at Star Elementary. I'm coming to you this evening to bring to you the current reality of the elementary world. Elementary teachers are currently learning and implementing 5 new curriculums. We have Wit and Wisdom, Foundations, Geodes, TBRI, and a new science curriculum. The expectation for elementary teachers is to get all 4 modules of a heavy Wit and Wisdom curriculum completed. This is not consistent for the entire district. We've been taught to administer DIBELS and have taken over progress monitoring. We've been working with Joni and our e-learning team to ensure equality and rigor with our online learning. Kindergarten specifically took out an hour out of their jam-packed academic schedule to run a synchronous practice with our students. Teachers then proceeded to make improvements in synchronous learning experiences. In hindsight, we need to work on being proactive rather than reactive. We are continuing to learn and professionally grow from NIET Cluster. This includes bringbacks, learning walks, classroom visits, etc. We continue to be trained and implement TBRI into our classrooms. This includes check-in Zoom meetings with the trainer, multiple surveys to fill out. Teachers are opening their doors to learning walkthroughs for Wit and Wisdom. However, this looks like 8 to 10 humans in a classroom, administration, coaches, Wit and Wisdom experts, other teachers. While we welcome anyone into our classrooms at any time, it's a lot of pressure for students to perform well in front of unfamiliar adults. Elementary teachers are working well beyond contractual minutes every week in order to be effectively prepared for classroom instruction, learning walks, bringbacks for cluster, etc. For example, my teammate and I stay late on Fridays in order to prepare for the following week. We do our best to optimize our planning minutes during the workday. However, oftentimes our prep is pulled for conferences, data meetings, MTSS meetings, the list goes on. In the month of January, I had 58% of my prep time. Due to this time being occupied, Ashley and I do not leave before 6 o'clock most Friday evenings. There's no other choice if we want to fulfill all the required duties at this time. This is my 9th year with RCS, and I've spent more time here in the evenings than ever before. I can't imagine what the balance of workload looks like for a brand new teacher. I am more than willing to put in the work and time for myself, my school, my teammate, and my students. However, at this point, something has to give. Poor mental, physical health in your teachers is going to affect students. Burnout leads to dysregulation in teachers and staff. That leads to dysregulation in students. And inevitably, it leads teachers moving on to a new district, or worse, a new career path. This is the polar opposite of what we're being taught and trained in TBRI. Teachers can only push, claw, and smile our way through the suffering for a certain length of time. I know I'm one person, but my voice as REA secretary represents roughly 80% of your teaching body, and teachers' mental health is being affected by this demanding workload. As elementary teachers, we are experiencing an overwhelming workload that is taking a significant toll on our mental well-being. The demands placed upon us have become increasingly heavy, requiring us to put in countless hours beyond the classroom. This relentless pace leaves us mentally drained and struggling to maintain a healthy work-life balance. It is essential for the board to address this issue to ensure that we can continue to provide the best education for our students. At the end of the day, they deserve the best of all of us. Thank you.
Jaylee.
Don't start the clock yet.
Very good.
I'm only keep that six. I know. Please.
How you doing? Jay Lee, REA president. I want to talk to you about corporate discussion and transparency. That's what it comes down to. I mean, teachers need to know information. All right. So I'm going to go back about 2 decades. Been here a long time. Scott Priest, who is our UD right now, he is our youth serve director. He was the president of REA. He was under with Dr. Borf. Kelly McDermott was our former president. She was here for 13 years. Scott Priest was, I believe, 2 years. And then me. Under Scott Priest, you had Dr. Borf. Under Kelly, you had Mr. Weber. You might have to help me with this one. Dr. Borf. Who was the interim superintendent? The lady who was here for like 6 months. But she was here.
Under Betty Poindexter.
Betty Poindexter.
That's it. All right. Then you had Todd Terrell, who I coached with, Dr. Terrell now. Jen O'Brien, who stepped in after he left, and then, of course, Dr. Wright. In the beginning, under Kelly McDermott, we had corporate discussion, met twice a week or twice a month. And we also had in-person meetings with the superintendent every week with the superintendents and the president of REA. And then 2023 happened. Blew up. All right. New law, everything, we stopped that. We don't have discussion anymore. And we don't have that really good collaboration. I'm going to talk about something here in a minute. Conversations have been very, very limited, and we need to get better at that. We are the foundation. We're the bricklayers. We build the foundations for all of our kids, which builds the foundations for all our community. Teachers do that. No one else. We're the ones in there putting it together. And we just need some information from time to time. Last time I came up, I talked about open forums. Open forums work at the building level. Because the building level leaders can answer this question with building level issues. When it comes to the corporate level, it doesn't happen. Okay. As of today, all right, it's changed. Okay, as of today, Dr. Wright and T. Washington and myself and Mr. Moffitt, we met yesterday, and as of today, we now have a once-a-month standing meeting where we're going to get together and talk about some issues with Dr. Wright, Mr. Moffitt, myself, and one of my designees. By the way, I got some really great young people. They talk a heck of a lot better than I do. All right, they're a lot smarter than I am, but so forth. But once again, that's 55 minutes once a month. I would love to see that come down to bi-weekly. I don't want to spend any more time with Dr. Wright than he wants to spend with me. But bi-weekly, come in, hammer it out, and get there. Yesterday's meeting, I kept, and you can ask the fellows here, I kept saying, because I knew they had a hard deadline, Dr. Wright, you got to go. We got a hard stop, you got to go. You had to go do some reading stuff. I understand that, and I'll honor that commitment. If there's a hard stop, it's a hard stop. There's nothing that we can't come back and talk about later. So that is better. I would love to see this regeneration. I don't care what you call it. Yesterday, I think we just call it corporate, where we have each school come in and get represented. So we don't play the telephone game anymore. They all know, they all have their issues that they can say, hey, this is what we're feeling in the district. This is what elementary feels in the district. This is what's going on at Crestdale. And then somebody at Crestdale says something and Fairview will say, us too. It's that. And then all of a sudden we can get there. We don't want to be a problem We want to help solve problems. We want to bring issues to the table and say, we see this. I gave an example to Dr. Wright yesterday. Our current level of professional development. It was presented to us a long time ago that we were going to give teachers, they're probably going to be angry with me, $200 stipend to spend 10 extra minutes for professional development. It was the teachers that came up and said, why don't we just let the kids out 10 minutes early on Tuesdays? Save your $200 because we have teachers that go to work at 4 o'clock.
30 seconds.
Got it. All right. So they needed that time to get to work. So, and we did. It's working perfectly. All in all, collaboration is key. We want to collaborate with you. We want to do anything we can to make this the best school district around here. All right. And you all have my number. You can call me anytime. Dr. Wright said I can call him anytime. Peace.
Joe Cox.
Need board members. Thank you for taking the time to see me here. I want to speak on behalf of my assistant coach that was dismissed from Richmond High School. Todd Wilson applied here. Todd Wilson was also a coach here prior to. My understanding that I was told that he falsified information on his application. Upon my search with Todd, I was told that, or he told me that when he did his application, he went in, hit the accept or the apply button, because he's already applied here once before, and didn't make any corrections to it. I've known Todd now for since 2005. Him and I have been coaching together, coaching softball. He's an outstanding coach. He was dismissed from Northeastern, and that's what he didn't put on his application. I understand this. But I would like to ask you to please reconsider his application. He is an outstanding coach. I've got a petition here with, with 28 names. I've also got letters from other parents, coaches, administration that back him and what he's done. Todd is very, very strong when it comes to softball program. He's already set up a feeder program to bring into the junior high and high school. Like I said, him and I have been coaching in this area since 2005, and we'd love to see our program come up more than what it is. This is my first year as head coach. I've been coaching here for, this will be my 4th year on the coaching staff. I've also did 3 years at Centerville. In between all that was nothing but travel softball. So we have a lot of knowledge to bring to these young ladies, and we just want to get the information out to them. I strongly urge and plead that you do reconsider his application. I think it was an error on his part. It's nothing that he was trying to hide. But I do want to thank you for your time. If you have any questions for me, please. Thank you. Thank you.
Adam Lyle. I just said that wrong. Sorry.
Good evening, everybody. I come to you as a blue-collar worker, Richmond resident for 10 years. Husband. Got 2 kids. Both go to Charles. He's pre-K, kindergarten, and Evelyn, she's a 4th grader. I'm coming in to discuss youth sports. I coach YMCA. I did it Richmond Premier Soccer at the Y, softball with REO. About to do Tiny Tots with him. and fourth grade softball was there. I'm not asking for money. I'm asking for maybe you guys have power. You guys have some influence. Maybe just help getting the youth programs going. I stand with Joe, my coach Todd. You know, we have resources at the gyms. We have the Karen Center has softball nets where we can practice, and right now we can't practice because we're not allowed to. Coach Todd, the guy that he's advocating for, literally got girls to come from the Centerville travel team to play for Richmond. They go to Richmond schools looking for resources to help get the program going. You know, community involvement. You know, I've been reading, you know, all the students leaving Richmond. That's got to be concerning. 1,000 students a couple years ago left. To me, that's concerning. They're all going to Northeastern, Centerville, Hagerstown. You know, you go to we did travel ball or fall ball. We go to these locations, and their youth leagues, their feeder programs are prospering. They have awesome facilities. REO, they do everything they can. But literally, it took a guy on Facebook, Sean Wright, you probably know the name. He's a pretty good community person. He asked for volunteers to clean up the fields. It was me and my daughter and like 8 other people in the community to go weed eat, take care of the fields, clean them up, just so the kids can play somewhere nice. I'm asking maybe a challenge to get people involved to help with the youth programs, coach. You know, it's really frustrating to try to coach, and there's no resources. You know, and my daughter can attest to this. It's really emotional to me. Her 4 of our best players on the softball team transferred out 4th grade to Northeastern. Those girls there are practicing right now. Their parents are paying the people to practice or places to go practice. We even started making a GoFundMe or a thing to go to Mario's yard to practice for the 10 and 12U teams that Todd put together. We're trying to keep them together, keep them here. We went to the Richmond Center. You know, we used the batting cages and stuff back there. Yeah, there was a JV basketball game going on, but it finished like 10 minutes after we got there. You know, we go to Crestdale to practice, and now we can't go to these places. I don't know why. You know, maybe it's insurance, maybe it's other resources, but a lot of these facilities are sitting empty, and we could be practicing. And you know, another example is, you know, I don't know if you guys go to high school football games or not, but the Richmond games are empty. You go to Northeastern, Centerville, Hagerstown, those stadiums are packed. They're paying money to come see them play. All of our places are empty. And that goes to almost every sport. And I know that's the community involvement, but you know, we have programs where we got girls, boys in 3rd and 4th grade, and they play together from 3rd grade on. You know, you're talking going to state, going deep in the playoffs. That's money coming in. And I feel like that would help the programs a lot. If we get the youth programs going now and invest in the youth at the 3rd and 4th grade levels to where they can play together and stay together for a long time, they're going to get good. I mean, look at the girls wrestling team. Everybody's all smiles and pictures. And why can't we have that for every sport? So I'm sorry they're constant roughness. You know, I've lived in Richmond for 10 years. We started our family here and we must stay. But my daughter, she wants to do archery. There's no archery program here. It is in Northeastern. And, you know, you go to those facilities and they've invested in their youth facilities. And I don't know if that's your guys' level. Probably not. But you guys have a lot of resources. I would say you guys wouldn't be where you're at if you didn't have resources. So thank you for your time. And
Okay, great, thank you. Moving on to item 4 for work session is 4.01, RCS Education Foundation.
President Pickett, trustees, I'm going to ask that Mrs. Swafford and Mrs. Karen Scout for joining us as they have prepared what I know you all have already had opportunity to review, but they prepared a brief review of some of the content that's found there in board docs. And from that, looking forward for conversation and guidance.
Good evening, everyone. I know that Mrs. Scout has provided some really great information on board docs. So I'm just going to summarize a little bit about an education foundation. This would be a means of raising funds and distributing them to support RCS for education-related causes. And this, it's my understanding that this would be in addition to, the donations that we already received. So people could still donate for a specific ECA or a program that they would like to donate to. This would be something separate and just provide additional opportunity for community members and others to donate. Some of the ways this could support RCS could be facility improvements, professional development, technology expansions, student support services, extracurricular programming, marketing, and communications. I did find some education foundation pages from other school areas in Indiana, which has it's a completely separate thing. So they have their own website and information on the page by IPS, West Lafayette, Noblesville, Perry Township, and Wayne. And those are just a few examples in case anyone wanted to check out one of their sites.
Alright, some reasons why and how we might start a foundation. Just it simply provides those in the community, whether they be just supporters or alumni or people that just businesses even that just love our school or want to help make activities happen or programs. It offers a venue and an area that you can do not only like minor donations, but sometimes more like endowment type of donations. The ability for investments that we as a school corporation cannot do. Just legally, there's some different parameters. It also provides a way that we can funnel some of the fundraising campaigns if they are a broader scope. It also does offer a capital campaign option that we as a school system have to do a little bit differently and do not have quite the opportunity that a foundation would have. So those are a couple of the big items that you see with foundations and the rationale behind it. In doing a lot of research on this over the years, they are more common than they are not. I will say that. Nationwide, they are an extremely valuable resource that schools across the country utilize in order to maximize their ability to capture funds in different ways. And so it's something that we've talked about here at this table a number of times. This is not our first conversation on it. However, it is always evolving and always updating with changes to legislation and options that are provided. So with that, we just wanted to open the floor today to kind of look at legally, what does it mean to do that? What do we need to do? What would be our next steps as we move forward? So I'm going to say that Mr. Cross can at any time interrupt me with the vast wealth of knowledge that he has. But I did provide for you just the legalities of it as far as statute. It is very, very specific. It does not allow for a lot of gray matter when it comes to the setup and the uses for it in the state of Indiana. But that is there for your reference, as well as information from the IRS on how to set up a 501c3 would be a part of that next step. It would be, as Mrs. Swafford said, a separate entity from the school board. It would have its own board. It would have its own executive director. A portion of that does require startup funds, and that is so that you can
establish your executive director and get started on the fundraising. So some information on that is also provided to you in board docs. That is in my peer network. I actually have been talking with a number of individuals who started the foundations at their school corporations and what they found, what was most successful, and that was around the average amount and information needed to get started successfully. So that's kind of just some real quick information for you on that. And then the next steps.
So the next steps would be to decide if you wanted an independent 501c3, or I think Karen mentions in her documentation about the Wayne County Foundation. And I know she has talked to some people about that process. The startup funding, I'm not sure if you just said this number, but it was 50,000 to 75,000. And that would be for an executive directorship pay. There are a couple different options. It could be funded by the corporation with a repayment plan, funded as an employee of the corporation as a startup, or the pay could be initially donated by the corporation. Then you would have to establish the 501c3 when I was looking. It takes approximately 6 to 12 months for that process through the IRS. You would have to establish the board of directors and then work with the board of directors to hire an executive director, establish bylaws, and do vision and mission statements and strategic planning. And then you could begin marketing and funding. So those would be the next steps.
So that was just some general information. We just want to open the floor for discussion, and we're here to help in any way we can.
I have several questions. So I noticed the grant writing portion of the executive director's maybe role. So funds would come in from donations and from grant writing, and would that role then? I mean, the grants of RCS would be different or not, or would that person write all grants for us, or are these two separate?
It's two separate entities, and one thing is that it doesn't have to be grant writing. So whatever bylaws are set and mission and goals for the foundation, that's what the work would be.
Okay.
So there are a lot of foundations that don't write grants, that just simply do fundraising or do capital campaigns and fundraising. Not every foundation for every school does the same thing. As far as that goes, some things that I've seen is that when they get substantial funding, they may offer mini grants to classrooms or to special projects or athletes or scholarships. And so the grant piece of it is all set by whatever that board decides is going to be the mission for that foundation. So not everybody does the same thing. We could decide at that level if we want grant writing to be a part or to not. The one thing is that it would not take the place of RCS handling our own grants.
Okay.
So all of those federal grants, all of the grants that we currently have would be separate of all of that.
And then, so this is kind of in addition to, so RCS would still get donations to do, or do you feel like that would take away some donations, or do you feel like not really take away because they're still, I guess it could. If I'm going to make a donation, I would then decide whether I'm going to donate to RCS or the RCS Foundation. Both of them essentially helping students in our community or teachers, or two different visions.
It seems like we get a lot of donations out of for a specific ECA, or like the soccer team,
Right.
This or whatever. So
Okay.
I feel like those would still come in like normal because they would go directly to that ECA versus going to the foundation. Maybe.
Yeah. The one thing that we can see is it would streamline some things. So we get a lot of requests out in the community. If we have, I'll just say, if the maintenance team wants to request a donation, they are one of possibly 100 requests that a business might get in a year from from the community, as far as school, whether it's us or a neighboring school. So it can streamline some of that if a business chooses to say that, you know, we'll donate, but we're going to do it through this channel. That can probably assist with some of those requests that we get sometimes, to say, hey, can you like limit how many we're going to get? So that is an option. We don't have any measure to know if it would reduce, or we do believe it would add to. And the whole point of the foundation is to go right back into student programs and the education of our students. And so it would, in effect, still continue the work that we do in either direction.
Thank you.
How, just sort of thinking it through when you talk about projects, right? Capital campaign or large sum that comes in. Just in your research, maybe you've asked this, maybe you haven't, or how do you foresee if, let's say, the foundation wants to really add to an area, right? Where maybe this board has said that's not on our, agenda. Like, how do you manage sort of those things that the foundation might want to do, or do you see it really more supporting people? Do you see it supporting infrastructure? Can it be anything, or is that really part of the mission and vision too? Like, is there a conflict there? How do we decide?
There's not a conflict. You as the board and the administration determine, in effect, what happens at the school level. They're there to support. Okay. So if we wanted a capital campaign, it would be a joint venture. It's much like the art museum. They did a capital campaign for the HVAC at the art museum, and we offered our support throughout the process. And they did a brunt of the work and did a lot of the work itself, but we worked in tandem to make sure that we were assisting them in anything that they needed. So I think that I would see that more of a support system. They are not a decision-making body for infrastructure, but they would offer support. And that's the part that it's a bit like the alumni association. They offer support, they offer scholarships. Their role is scholarships. The role of the foundation would be whatever it is set up to be. And that's something that I think that when you decide if we want to go this route, we need to establish what those parameters and goals would be at that point.
I think it's a lot like Reed Health has the Reed Foundation, and I serve on one of the Reed governing boards, and there's collaboration. You have to be, and one of the things that I saw in the proposal is just the governing body and the school corporation may appoint members to the foundation. So I think there's wisdom in doing that so that we're all working cohesively. Right. So, but yeah, that's a good question, because you don't want one doing one thing and one doing another. And it's like, wait a minute, or duplicating. Yeah.
And what I have seen just from my peers, oftentimes the representatives from the school are the superintendent, business manager, maybe so you are represented through them so that they can make sure that everything is working together. I think that Mrs. Stolt's point is exactly spot on. It's a cohesive work that everyone is moving in the same direction.
I guess I thought the mechanism foundation has been important for a number of years. I think my concern is, and administration has always said it needs to be we need to have an executor. It needs to be its own thing. I guess I have never quite understood that argument because there's basically no endowment to support it. So you're adding expense until you have an endowment to pay for a director. So, and while I guess I understand, there's also, we don't have I mean, we think it's a good idea. We want it, I believe, but there's not like a drive. I mean, there's not like, we want it to do this. We don't have kind of that piece of the puzzle. So to me, it seems like you would set up the foundation through the Wayne County Foundation, which I think has proven to be an excellent county organization, and grow that endowment until you had the need or the want or had the real push. What's it actually going to do? Because otherwise, it could take a decade to raise enough endowment to pay for the director. And so you've got all that expense year after year after year that I think the corporation would be funding. Whereas if you say, we've had this endowment or this foundation with Wayne County, it's collected $250,000 over 2 years with just out of goodwill, no real direction. And then you have a direction. And then the focus is, okay, now the school board and the school and the foundation want to do this specific thing. Then you have the energy and the excitement, and then you say, well, maybe now's the time to get a director. I think the cart's a little bit before the horse in having a 501c3 foundation when we have such a great resource in the community that we can use right now. So that's kind of where I'm at. I think there's tons of benefits, basically in areas. I think the one that's always come to mind is sabbatical type things. If a teacher had an opportunity to study abroad or do something, we have no mechanism to fund that. Where a foundation could possibly fund something like that. The capital programs are an obvious. Let's say we want new bleachers, a new stadium, or whatever. That would be, an obvious ploy for a foundation to be a partner in a capital fund. But right now, not that we don't have needs, but I don't know that there's the glaring, this is where the foundation's place would be. And I think without that piece, I'm very hesitant to add a $75,000 a year position to our corporation in central office. So that's kind of where I'm at.
So if we chose, and I guess I don't quite understand how the Wayne County, would we be a piece of that? Like a separate little subset of the Wayne County Foundation? I don't know how it's set up. So
We would be umbrella.
Yeah, they
would be the umbrella. You would basically have a fund that would be similar to a donor advised investment fund.
Okay.
There are no school corporation foundations in Wayne County. Centerville has chosen to affiliate with a national group, Dollars for Scholars, I think, if I didn't butcher that, or the other way around. And they have their own board, so they basically have gone under a different type of prior existing umbrella, if you will. And I think the proposal, and I think John is frankly just right spot on. There are two aspects to the proposal, and I think it's important you focus on each aspect. The first aspect is, what is the vehicle you need to achieve the purpose that you want? And if the purpose is raising money for yet undefined purposes, I tend to think you're better advised to try to find an existing vehicle to do that and avoid the duplicitous costs. Like it or not, there's a critical mass of philanthropy in this area, and it can be pushed, it can be expanded, the envelope can get a little bigger, but at the end of the day, I think you're going to see this basically a pie of pretty finite size, and our challenge will be getting a bigger piece of that pie for Richmond schools and for the kids. So the vehicle is one point. Then the critical mass of having the people motivated to do it is the real piece. And that's the real piece. And that is where the school corporation comes in. The foundation isn't going to give you that advocacy. They'll give you expertise and investment. They'll give you flexibility and investment, as Karen alluded to, that she doesn't have, or the business office doesn't have, but they can't create your advocacy for you. And that is where you need that critical mass of human goodwill and initiative. And I'm not saying it's there, it's not, but that you have to really have that. And John's quite right. It could easily be a decade to where you could have an endowment that might support a sabbatical, that might support a 1 year or maybe a 3 year program to bring in a Latin teacher or a German teacher, true academic enhancements that we can't invest in because we can't justify them now with the traditional financial methods of supporting it. So I think John's point's well taken, but I think if you wanted to do it, you could do it, but recognize that the duality of what you're trying to get done, and the vehicle, I think, can be there and can be made there. Why the Western Wayne, Northeastern, and Richmond and Hagerstown do not have, and Seton, although it's private, do not have foundations? I think that's a good question. I think what we have to figure out, or what you need to figure out, is what is going to be the selling point, if you will, for the creation of one for Richmond Community Schools, and if so, what's the best way to do that to accomplish your purposes without necessarily diluting that limited philanthropy pot that we're all working toward.
So I've worked with the formation of a couple of 501c3 organizations in the last 30 years, and it does not happen overnight. I think, going back to John's point, one of the best things I could see is that still, if we were to do this and establish one, do it under the umbrella again of Wayne County Foundation. There's somebody, that's an organization that's established. It has community clout. It has regional and state clout as well. Lack of better expression, they're experts in that field right now when it comes to this area, and it's very evident by a lot of the things that are entertained here in Richmond and Wayne County. Not giving up on the thought of having an RCS foundation, but right now, and I know for a fact, you were saying 6 to 12 months. It takes 6 to 12 months to get a group of people together to come up with, mission statements, vision, and everything else in purpose. The separate types of areas that you want to focus on with fundraising. It takes some time, and then going back to the point of $55,000 to $75,000 a year to pay for a salary. That right alone is going to wipe out, deplete any fundraising necessarily, or funds that you may have initial. I'm in favor of having one of these, but right now I know that for a fact it would take some time. I like the idea of partnering up under a different entity at this point. That's just my opinion.
I will just offer that the rationale behind the set aside at the beginning is that, and this came from other schools, they just said that exactly what Mr. Cross said. They wanted someone aggressive enough to go get the funding for them, and they wanted to be able to do that. So that's why that was recommended. It is not in any way a recommendation that we are making one way or another. It's just understanding that portion of the decision making is we have to be aware that would bring that ability. And so I just wanted to clarify that. It wasn't because anyone is saying you have to do it. It was just recommended by everybody I talked to that if we were going to do it and it be at the school level, we needed to decide to get an executive director that was going to go get the money. And that was how you do that. So I just wanted to clarify that.
And I don't disagree. I think the question is, we don't know what we're asking. What would they go get the money for? And so I think until we can answer that question, and I think my idea, if you set up with the Wayne County Foundation, you would set it up with the intention to eventually become its own 501c3. And I don't think there's anything that says, okay, let's say a capital campaign is decided for this. In year 2, we can still hire a director. They don't have to be a foundation, Wayne County Foundation employee that could then administer the program and do a lot of things and fundraise and work towards, take that off your guys' plate, is creating the 501c3. And so I really don't think if we had the 4, it'd be a different discussion. But since I think the 4 is still cloudy or nebulous or are not well defined, I think, student All right. Whereas if it's, I don't know, we have STEAM on the horizon, and there's lots of new things. We have athletic facilities we talk about all the time. I mean, I think there's things we can identify. And I think, again, also, Ron, I think there's probably some big fish out there that maybe aren't in the community that I think would be the actual target for some of these dollars. But I think we have to really have our ducks in a row before we go fishing.
I would agree with basically what I'm hearing and what's been said in that it seems like the director and having our own foundation is a more aggressive approach, definitely more proactive going after. I hear what you're saying, Ron, about we have limited funds that we're drawing from in our community, but I also do see potential outside of our community, the people that are alums who have moved outside and have deep pockets. And I mean, I would love to be able to hire someone to say, would you like to give back, to Richmond? And that would be awesome. But I also see a more conservative approach being starting with the Wayne County Foundation, kind of building that starter foundation, basically, a little nest egg or whatever, there. And then, once we get to the point where we either have grown that or to your point, John, we've got a capital campaign, we've got a concept that we're all behind, and we're all thinking, okay, this is what we want to add. We want a director to be asking specifically for this capital campaign. That's a lot easier of an ask, to be honest. I mean, if I'm that director, I'm saying this is, you're casting vision then, rather than just very like, oh, student support services, and the person's going, I have no idea what to do. Okay, whatever. Yeah. So I guess I feel like where I am right now is probably like, okay, we start with Wayne County Foundation, and see where that takes us. Again, unless we're wanting to go whole hog, get that director.
Well, I think your point's well taken. I think what you want is that critical mass. And I know Dr. Wright and we share a favorite philosopher in Santana, not the guitar player. That if we don't learn from history, we can repeat its mistakes, but by the same token, we can learn from our successes in history. Look at what we had when we had a critical mass in the form of Lucille Gamp and bequest. Now, it wasn't clean, so it took a couple of advocates, Tom Milligan, recently we lost, and Sandy Lingle, and they really spearheaded that initiative. But they were working with a start of over $1.5 million, so that was a pretty good critical mass to start with. So, you had the people, you had the advocates, did the legal stuff we had to do, had to get a court interpretation of the will that would say it would allow for the conversion of an existing facility as opposed to a new standalone bricks and mortar. That was a question. It's a legal question. And it was the court. Ross Harrington presented it on behalf of his client to the trust, and the judge Rinke ruled that it was a permissible one, and the rest, as they say, is history. Did not set up a 501c3 though for it. They used Richmond Community Schools. As you see, the donations come in, and they're geared towards Civic Hall Associates, which is an existing entity, but it never got a 501c3 qualification. So that was a partnership, if you will, with a defined critical mass for a defined purpose, and it worked. And the whole community's been a beneficiary of it.
So if going with the Wayne County Foundation, would we still create a board of directors? Or is that sort of taking over that until we decide to?
Why don't we just have oversight of that? Is that right?
Well, I think you'd have to talk to Rebecca and find out exactly what their constraints are, because I'm sure that's just not.
And the couple of things that we get from the foundation through endowment funding are set up differently. So I think that a conversation with Rebecca would be helpful for us to know what the options are for them, and what that looks like in whichever manner is available.
Because I agree with what everyone's saying. I just also, how do we I don't think it needs to be a full executive director starting off, but like just having that, you know,
Point
how
person.
do we start pushing, I guess is the question. But I think maybe speaking with them just to get a little more insight of how that would work and how we can sort of take those steps forward and to really hone in on what we want to do.
I think the piece you have to have that you're going to have to contribute to and create is the synergy for it. Because if you look in their annual report, there are a lot of funds, but not all of them have a current advocacy. And that's we want to stay current. We want to make sure that it's a viable, breathing organization. And I agree with John. I think our goal at the end of the tunnel, however long that tunnel is, would be to, if you will, spin it off and have it become its own foundation and own an identity. That would be that would you would arrive.
I think the foundation, if you looked at what they've done the last few years, I mean, they've really redefined themselves in the community. And I mean, to me, this is kind of right in that path that they're on as far as is working with nonprofits, working with the community. And so it'd be really interesting to see what their views were. And maybe this excites some thoughts behind them, because as they're sitting with clients saying, you're donating your estate to the Wayne County. Now they have one more piece, and yes, there's hundreds of funds probably, but that Richmond is always top of mind. And when I graduated, let's put 10% there. I mean, I think there would be more success with them just on a small scale doing that than we would maybe even anticipate. But it'd be, and I don't know if Karen and Melissa have that conversation or Dr. Wright, but those would be really interesting conversations with the foundation, see what they thought of this partnership collaboration. Because I think that they've really positioned themselves interestingly and very deliberately the last few years.
Any other questions, comments?
So are we deciding we're gonna have more research done as far as with Wayne County Foundation? What does that look like? And maybe a report back, and then we can decide for sure if that's where we want to go.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I think that's
Ladies, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to consent items.
Madam President, I move to approve consent items 5.01, 5.02, 5.03 with the addendum that was presented to us.
I'll second.
So that is a motion by Member Stevens and a second by Member Schultz. Any questions or comments? Okay. All those in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Vote passes 7-0. Moving to action items. First on the agenda, 6.01, 2025-2026 RHS Curriculum Guide as presented.
I move to approve 6.01, the 2025-2026 RHS Curriculum Guide as presented.
Second.
And a motion by Member Stevens and a second by Member Weber. Questions or comments?
I had a few comments. First, thanks for everyone who put that together. I'm sure that takes a huge amount of work, so thank you. The valedictorian requirements that changed in 2027, we kind of decided, so I wanted to highlight that those requirements changed, so public pay attention to those. I really liked the readiness details that are aligned with each student's unique path, and I like the presentation of that in there. I think it will make sense to students and to parents for those new diploma guidelines, and I know it's gone through many revisions, those pathways, so to have it clear in this is very helpful, I think, for parents. So, and I just wanted to highlight that I really love that college and career prep class as a requirement. I sat in on Mr. Hanley's class at Dennis a few weeks ago, and that's a requirement that's noted coming up, but our students are able to take it in middle school, which is fantastic, that 1 credit. So that's one of their first credits they get toward that. And a great class, but just talking about where do I want to go? Where do I see my future? Is it the college path or which path? So that's it. Oh, sorry, one more thing. I also noticed 100 hours of public service hours required for the honors enlistment seal. And I really like that. I thought that was fantastic to see some public hours, service hours, and also the addition of the personal financial responsibility class at the high school and a technical math, which is a real world math class. Those additions, I think, in anthropology, cultures, and music and American history, just some variety of new classes at the high school coming.
You'd have a question. So there are a number of changes with the social studies groups, and I believe in the update it talked about that was department driven. Was that also student driven? And so I guess my questions would be, what other kind of feedback did you have from the students on the curriculum guide? If you could take a moment there, Dr. Wright.
Assistant Superintendent Pritchard? Yes, come on down, sir.
So I'll have to get that. Miss Wolfe did. So they did a Google form. The department chair for social studies, I believe, Mr. Price, who spoke earlier. They were wanting to sort of upgrade and revamp, see what kids are interested in. That's where like the pop culture kind of things, like music to it, and the anthropology stuff came from. So they did a Google form with the kids to kind of ask them. And that's why they got those courses. But I don't know. I didn't see the form itself, so I can get that and reply to an email.
I'd be curious. Just, I mean, I would hope. I think that's what we. I mean, yeah. When the pop culture pops up, you're like, all right, that probably came from the student body, or at least from Mr. Price.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is you saw that with the new diploma requirements, there's lots of electives.
Yes.
I mean, so I think it's social study, kind of saying how can we keep kids in social, because now you don't have to take a lot of those things. So now they have a lot more freedom with their electives. So making sure it's things kids want to take. And so.
And I was also curious if we had any negative or positive feedback on valedictorians. Probably not. I mean, it's a pretty small slice of kids that I'm not worried. But all right, yeah. Anything you could. I mean, if you that wouldn't waste much time.
Yeah, so I can kind of synthesize.
I'd be curious.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
I have a question on the seals. So when I was first reading through and all of the changes, right, there's numerous seals, but then, on here we have like honor seal and honors plus seal.
Yeah.
So are there actual other seals? Is that what they can sort of dictate, or is it just these two?
I think it's page 15.
Yes.
That the DOE put out. So that is it. It's the honor seal and the honors plus. If a starting 2029 full scale, but if a student does not earn a seal, they can still graduate with full pathways, what we consider pathways. They can't still use those graduation pathways that we currently have if they don't have a seal. The basic diploma is 140 or 42 hours, and then they can choose stay on a pathway that they currently have, or they can get seals. So it's kind of
So what is actually a pathway? Are we talking like the technical honors and academic, or that terminology will be retired?
It'll kind of be retired. It'll still be out there, but it'll be streamlined because most of the efforts will be focused on kids who are trying to get these new academic seals. That's the direction that the DOE is trying to send us. So,
okay. Because I'm like reading through, and I, lots of pushback on some of this, but I do feel like a lot of kids are going to get the basic diploma. So I just wasn't sure what that was even really going to be called anymore. So.
Actually, they're on page 14. They reference the general designated diploma. Right. What's interesting is, and as we know, there were several things that we truly learned from the COVID pandemic. But during that time, as students, as well as parents and guardians, discovered the traditional high school experience. It's changed dramatically, and so this new format definitely try to see what sign of the times, if you will. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see as time plays out how it all truly comes together.
Right, because if they don't get a seal, and it would be a general designated diploma, but you have to follow a formal opt-out process.
And ideally,
So I'm concerned about. I mean, obviously we don't necessarily have a say, but I'm concerned. I mean, I've got really smart kids. I don't know if they can complete all of these hours and requirements in the honor seal, and a lot of our kids can't. So,
Well,
will they have to all follow and do an opt-out process?
well, that's what we're reading. So the class of 2026 students aren't tied to the new diploma. They can opt in. They can, if they can earn a seal, which most high schools are not equipped to fulfill all the requirements just yet. And that's where we are working with our local, with our other county-wide corporations to develop systems that kind of help kids achieve those things. So that's our challenge for the next 3 years, is to make sure that this incoming freshman class has all of these things so that they can get a seal. So right now, you're not wrong. And a parent looking at this, my kid can't get those things. No, because no high school is equipped for this. It's just kind of dropped in their laps in December.
Right.
So we have plans in place to get those things ready when the high school does. That's kind of why this is a little bit later than usual. This guide, because they had to add some things and tweak some things to try to move in that direction so that kids can do that. So we will guarantee that kids can achieve these things, as long as they're doing what we need to do and listening to their counselors.
Right.
But right now, you're correct. It is possible, and a student can, on an individual basis, but the entire class, it doesn't take effect until 2029. So kids in 2027, 2028, if they fulfilled some of these things, if they've gotten the work-based learning hours and things, they can get a seal and graduate in a diploma, but it's not required.
and just to be clear, against the current 8th grade class,
Yes,
that this impacts.
Yeah. Yeah. So we will, to your point, parents, have all these things in place so that those kids can be successful.
My 6th grader will be, but we're gonna need a parent class too. I need tell me what I need to do.
Now, I just want to applaud the efforts because just in looking through the curriculum, I was intrigued personally. I'm like, I want to take anthropology. I want to say, so thank you for and for polling the students to say what classes do you want to take, and I was especially glad to see the personal financial responsibility. Our students are going to be learning about banking, budgeting, managing risk, insurance. I don't know, Michael, are you doing a cameo appearance let me talk about insurance. But all of that is
industry
adulting,
Right.
and so I love that we're helping prepare our students for that. So thank you.
They have poured into it over the last month and a half to make this happen and try to make sure that ship is headed in the right direction for the kids. So,
And to Mr. Pritchard's point,
and her, they've done a great job.
as he alluded to, and I apologize to interject, but we as countywide superintendents have been meeting, and our teams collectively with the Wayne County Chambers Association, for Wayne County Foundation, and other business entities to try and, in the course of time, provide such opportunities for students around the county. To really get and take advantage of some of the direction in which the state is guidance toward. And so it's been very positive. And at this juncture, we're trying to solidify some collective efforts in finding the right person to truly coordinate this, because it's a mass undertaking. And we definitely all are game for the challenge. And so it's definitely going to provide some opportunities that we all never had.
Well, it's easy. That's why it's easy to sit back and grumble about what the state has forced upon you, but they took a positive approach as a building and, pulled kid interest and got the counselors involved to work us pretty hard. I was kind of surprised. She actually said this probably wasn't going to come until March, but they actually ramped it up and brought it in a little quicker. So, yeah, kudos to them.
Thank you, Mr. Pritchard.
Sure.
All those in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Vote passes 7-0. Next, item 6.02, request to advertise for food service management.
Hearing none, I move to approve 6.02, the request to advertise for food service management proposal as presented.
Second.
I have a sorry, motion by Stevens and a second by Mr. O'Loriaga. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay. Vote passes 7-0. Moving on to item 7, policy review and updates. First on the list, we have policy 7.01, or item 7.01, policy 3220.02, supplemental payments for teachers. This is second reading.
I move to approve 7.01 policy 3220.02 supplemental payments for teachers on second reading.
Second.
Motion by member Stevens, a second by member Brand. Any comments or questions?
Before your brains.
All those in favor, straight up by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Vote passes 7-0.
Is that the new curriculum?
Yeah. AI is what.
Item 7.02, which is policy 6550, travel achievement and reimbursement relocation costs. First reading.
I move to approve I move to forward policy 6550 to second reading.
I'll second.
So motion by member Stevens, a second by member Stoltz. Questions or comments? All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Item 7.03, which is revised policy 1520.08, employment of personnel for extracurricular activities. First reading.
I move to move policy 1520.08 to second reading.
Second.
I have a motion by member Stoltz and a second by member Almoriaga. Any questions or comments? All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Vote passes 7. Item 7.04, which is policy 1662.01, threatening and or intimidating behavior towards staff members. First reading.
I move that we forward 7.04 policy 1662.01 to second reading.
I'll second.
Motion by member Stevens and a second by member Stoltz. Any questions or comments? All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Vote passes 7-0. Item 7.05, revised policy 3120.08, employment of personnel for extracurricular activities. First reading. This is the sister policy. We call that of 7.03.
I move to forward 7.05, which is policy 3120.08 to second reading.
I'll second.
A motion by member Stevens and a second by member Stoltz. Questions or comments? All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Vote passes 7-0. Item 7.06, revised policy 4120.08, employment of personnel for extracurricular activities. First reading.
I move to move policy 4120.08 to second reading.
Second.
A motion by member Stoltz, a second by member Stevens. Questions or comments? All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Vote passes 7-0. Item 7.07, revised policy 5340.01, student concussions and sudden cardiac arrest, first reading.
I move to forward 7.07 revised policy 5340.01 to second reading.
Second.
That was a motion by member Stevens, a second by member Loriaga. Questions or comments?
Yes. So it's been a couple of years since we've talked about this, and so I might be a little rusty. But the problem with cardiac arrest and the AED is training. We have the AEDs. They're in the buildings. They're easily accessible. People don't know how to use them. I don't think our CPR training, I don't know, where is our staff being trained how to use an AED device? And should that not be in this policy? So that's my question.
So when teachers renew their licenses, they have to undergo CPR training, and part of that training is AED use. That is part of their annual training that they get when they renew their license. So every teacher has had that training.
So if I go over to the high school and ask a teacher, where's the closest AED, can they identify that?
That they might not be able to. I don't know. I can't speak for them on that. But when you asked about the training, that's what I knew about. But I'm not sure about that. I know, and I can only speak for me. When I was a principal, we had that training. We would do that once a year. We'd walk the building and show them different things that were necessary. So I can get with the principals and suggest that. I think that's a good idea.
If you could maybe even share, I don't know if it's a sheet or what the training looks like. I mean, it'd be nice to see what that training looks like because that's the big problem.
Oh, the training for the AED? Yeah. That's not anything that we require. That's required by the state, and they have to actually go and show somebody. Like you can get online training through Red Cross, and that doesn't count unless you go and get that second part. Like one time when I renewed, I did that online. And then I made an appointment with the read and showed somebody that hands-on. And so that hands-on part is required as well as the AED training.
Because I think people have had training for years and years, but devices still aren't being used when they need to be used. So even though people have had training, I mean, I don't think this is an issue we can. I mean, the likelihood is minimal.
Right.
But
when it's there, it's necessary.
And so the inaction is what causes the failure. And so if we can add a line in the policy or have a month or enhance the training, I guess, in some way.
You might want to just suggest that as they finish the policy that they at least do a rough draft of what the administrative guidelines to implement the policy ought to look like. And a big piece of that, I'm sure, would be the educational piece.
Okay.
So we can add an administrative guideline for that then.
We had a good conversation in the policy working group about that, as well as the marching band being, across the parking lot. Where's the nearest AED? And, just kind of like, oh, okay, well, they've got to have it with them. And it sounds like that is the current practice for them to carry that over, but we were just wanting to ensure. So, yeah, those were similar thoughts that we were.
To Mr. Weber's point, and it's definitely something within the administrative guidelines would address, but a lot of the new technology, the new AEDs are as simple as pushing a button and it verbally, tell you exactly where to place the buttons when they do it. So, to Mr. Weber's point, just getting access to and knowing where they are is more than that.
It has to be friendly, so you're thinking that way too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, AEDs. No one experiences it regularly, so the more you can refresh and keep it kind of on the cusp, I think.
Good thoughts.
Thank you.
All those in favor, say by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Vote passes 7-0. Item 7.08, policy 8600, transportation. This is the first reading.
I move that we move policy 8600 to second reading.
Second.
I have a motion by member Stoltz, a second by member Omoriaka. Questions or comments?
Yes, and I have not spent a ton of time on this, but I didn't quite understand the green highlighted portion that was the students eligible for transportation. We had talked, I guess, last time the bus company was here about what makes their life. Have those numbers been? I mean, it's 0.4 miles from the school, 0.7. Are those new numbers that we developed with our bus partner at best practices, or is it just numbers we've always used?
Mr. Scott, since this will be good about Jenkins, please join us, man.
They are not new numbers. This is what our old policy stated, and we needed that re-implemented when we went to Neola. That was lost, and so all of that came from the old policy. So it was what the board had approved.
Should they be? I mean, is it time to look at them and say it's
We did
4/10 of a mile
We
versus
did look at
half
that.
mile? So the bus can. So we don't really want to make changes, I guess is what you're saying.
I would not recommend it in the middle of the year.
Well, I mean, as we move forward. But I would think we're, coming up on next year. We were doing the policies, this would be now the time to.
We can review it if the board would entertain that. I will just caution the board that if you want to expand the zones, that would look very different for just for what that would look like. If we want to look into that, we can. Reducing the zones would create some additional difficulties. But we can definitely look into it if the board would like to.
I think to Mr. Weber's point, what's interesting is that as we are all transitioning into our new realm of leadership, locally, state, and nationally, there's definitely going to be, I believe, some creative thought that's going to come depending upon how things play out, especially with operational dollars. And so to Mr. Weber's point, this may be something that we do revisit down the road once we're able to discover what type of funding we'll have within this particular account.
Yeah, I just like to make sure that this is our best balance of bang for the transportation dollar and walk. I mean, I think, and maybe it is, but it seems a perfect time to look at it.
I do think, and this might be a good work session topic as we, maybe post spring break, because when we had transportation come and we talked about, I forget how we sort of referred to it, the different stops, you might go one place on one day, you might go another, get dropped off. I mean, I think it's good to just even get those numbers to look at in work session, because it might not have any bearing on anything, or we might really see that pattern of, okay, if we change this up or change that up. So, yeah, obviously it's not changing. I think it's important to sort of see where our population, or we are predicting for the next school year.
No doubt about it, Madam President. What you referenced is something that Mr. McHugh mentioned earlier this afternoon as he had stopped in to tour, is the fact that I'll just speak from my experience in previous service, school bus transportation consisted of door to door, which was from your home to the school, from the school to your home. We are very unique here in Michigan Community Schools with the huge hearts that you all as a board of trustees, as well as the central office and the building level leaders, the alternative routes that we take to service our community, serve the students, and the multitude of partnerships that we have in our community that rely upon such foundations consideration. It's going to be something that, as I mentioned, depending upon how funding plays out, that we may have to become creative as the community support, because we do go above and beyond for our community. Most other schools is from your front door to school, front door.
I do think the changing and updating routes, since it has been successful.
Yes.
So trying to build upon that if we can, if we need to. So yeah.
The one note that I do request is if we determined that we want to do a work session, and if you would like us to investigate this more, just please allow us the time needed to look into it, because it is not an overnight process, and so it's something that I just will need a little time to make sure we get right.
And student transport, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great. All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Vote passes 7-0. Moving on to, let me take my cough drop off, sorry. Moving on to other discussion, item 8.01, President's Update. That would be me. And before we sort of go into this, we revamped this agenda just slightly. So just so that we're all aware, and the whole goal is to our other discussions section, right? If any board member, feels like they really want to discuss something, get, it's an open forum vote, how we want to move forward on something, we just asked that topic be provided so we can put it on the agenda. Aaron, Mr. Stevens, you made a really good point, I believe, last meeting about getting items like that on the agenda so the public can see, they can come comment if they have feedback. And then moving into the open forum section, which we'll get there, will be, items that we want to bring up. We, just FYIs, celebrations, shout out, call outs, things like that. So
Did we put a time constraint on this?
yes. Yes. So items under other discussion, it's looking more for like a board consensus. So we'll have a couple minutes. If we have questions, comments, great. We'll go down the line and sort of, if we have, or if we're listening to guests. So that's the goal. Okay. So my update is a little bit different only because, Dr. Wright and I attended the board president seminar. Friday,
Yep.
And then we both attended the new board members seminar, which I had watched the video when I first started. So then I actually did the virtual session of that. So there were a couple sort of housekeeping items I just thought would be really good to bring to the board that the ISBA brought up. One being that they recommended that we should actually open and close public commentary. Seems minor. We can or cannot do it. I don't think we officially open it. We don't officially close it. But, today we had a lot of great commentary. So, that is something, if we feel like we should do that. If no one has an opinion either way, I'm not swayed. I just thought it was a good thought.
I have a great question. What does open and close mean? What does it look like?
Just I'm opening the floor for public commentary, and then as the last person is done, I would officially close public commentary.
Okay. I was going to say, because you already opened it. So, okay,
Yeah.
This concludes our public commentary. Moving on to consent items.
Yeah.
Yeah, this needs to go.
Yeah. I just thought it was interesting because you hear the other board members and they're like, yeah, we do that, and something you don't have to think about. So
Well, I would just advise that you have to be ready though to reopen public comment if you have a new agenda item or an agenda item that was put on for discussion and suddenly you decide you want to take final action on it, because the statute does require that anything you vote on be preceded by an opportunity for public comment.
got it. Okay.
So, but as long as you stick to the agenda, you're
Don't close public commentary. Okay. Going along with that, they brought up something I really thought, I don't believe we've run into it so much as we've changed our format of board meetings, but the public can comment on any topic at any meeting. I know we used to have sort of a work session meeting and a regular board meeting, and when I first started, we talked about it a lot of, someone gets up and they want to talk about something, are we really going to limit them? But it was just really addressed that it doesn't matter, whatever's on our agenda, the public can come and speak about anything. So I that made me feel better because I know you
kind of get that little rush of angst if you feel like you know, they shouldn't be talking about it during that meeting. No one wants to tell someone that. So I thought that was very interesting.
For example, if I can
Yeah.
get that, because I had posed a question to Attorney Slate's Attorney Cross, who I know all too well, because initially, if you all recall, during our work sessions, public commentary was restricted to just those agenda items, so as to make sure that our funnel focus and time is maximized for those particular topics. But as that President referenced, it now apparently calls for public commentary to be about anything that anyone has under the sun on whether in business or work sessions. So that's something we continue to consider as we move down the road.
Yeah, absolutely.
I could have a suggestion on that. If that's the case, then we should revisit what we discussed previously in regard to moving from 5 minutes to 3 minutes in regards to that. That's just a suggestion for us to think about. But I mean, if that is the availability for the public to do that, we could have, a hot topic and 20 people all of a sudden decide that they want to speak, and then that's
consume time. Right. And that's something else that, to Member Stevens' point, I know it has been addressed in the past, whether or not to move from 5 to 3, but they also alluded to during the new boardroom academy that in some corporations, some districts, if we all are signed up to talk about the same topic, yes, one is going to be elected to represent all of us, so that other topics, if there are people in the audience that have other topics that they would like to address, have an opportunity to share those other topics. And so that's also an option. I know we've talked about that in the past as well. But there are some options that you, as a board, can vote.
And the president still has the prerogative to limit the time per person. I was thinking, and I'd rather not think it worked well to pass. I've never really, in 90 years, I've not really had any. I don't think we've had any problems with public commentary.
We've had situations in the past where we've had 50 people come to the podium to speak on the same thing, and we've limited it, or we've lowered the time. I can think of 4 situations in particular, but to do that, to give everybody the opportunity. But most public governmental entities now, as well as what Dr. Wright was alluding to, school corporations, when issues, say how many people are here when they come in to sign up for public commentary, how many are speaking on this, how many are speaking on that, and it's limited to how many people will be at the podium to speak on these things. And it's for the clarity and also out of time, for time consumption, and in fairness to those people who come to the meetings in here.
I don't know, they're doing information on Saturday. In person, the folks in the room, they realized that we still had 5, we still provided 5. It's something that 3 minutes is typically, I think, it's usually as well. But I believe our current policy calls for up to 5. I think that there was used to say up to, which comes back to the president's discretion.
I get really concerned. I mean, we are public officials. At bare minimum, we should listen to our public. And so if someone walks through those doors and wants to speak, I think even if they're one of 100 on the same topic, I believe they have that right to speak. And if nothing else, that's the one thing we owe them. And so I get the pushback, and I get the simplification and all the reasons why you might not want to do that. But it's just the core, being a public official, I mean, it takes a lot to speak at that podium. I mean, I've done it, and I don't like to speak in public, and so it takes a lot. And so I think if someone, now we may cut them from 5 to 30 minutes or maybe even 2 minutes, but to get their turn.
I'm not saying deny somebody the opportunity. What I'm saying is I think, out of fairness to anybody there who wants to speak, if we stipulated that, our public commentary is going to be 3 minutes, it sets a standard that 3 minutes is across the board under any topic, so that it doesn't seem like this person just had 5 minutes earlier and now this one only has 3. If we had it, stipulated that our public commentary was 3 minutes across the board, it's not denying someone the opportunity to speak, but it's also equitable to everybody with the time amount given.
We always make the adjustments before the first person speaks.
I don't see in our policy where it says the president can make that adjustment. What I see is the statements are limited up to 5 minutes. The president may interrupt if, someone's personally directed abuse that we've seen. I don't see anything where it says may cut to 3 minutes if there are a lot of people who speak in our current policy.
I think that's by design.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have, the president runs the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
You have some authority given to that. It doesn't all need to be spelled out.
Well, I think that's why we have policies, that we follow the policy. I don't know, I'm good with the 5 up to 5 minutes. I agree that I feel like the public needs to speak, they need to speak, but I'm just saying it doesn't say, our policy is not to follow, that it's decided then that it's shortened. It's not what it was.
We can continue this later. Okay. Something they were pretty adamant on, which I never thought about it, was when we second a motion, which I believe we all, do you want to actually say second, not so moved? Which once you think about it, and they just brought up, I think it's pretty important, like where are we moving to? And they were talking about other boards too in the community and how they sort of do a shorthand, but just to be official. And Mr. Stevens and Mrs. Stoltz do a great job.
Going back to something that our corporate attorney said several years ago, reminding us, and I may be overgoing, like when I make a motion, I'll say item 7.05, policy number, and read it out so that it doesn't come across that you just read, what it is, and I say so moved. If I'm going to make the motion, a proper motion spells out exactly what you're making the motion on. If it's the bubblegum chewing policy, yes, 5.03, then I move to approve policy 5.03, the bubblegum chewing policy.
Second.
So moved.
We actually, there's
I didn't realize you were chewing.
I was chewing it. See, I was like,
there was a board, was it Wayne Township? That they were actually having some of their BTA members come and give a
Robert's rule.
yes check to the board about Robert's rules, and I was like, that is great because it's fresh in their minds, right? They're going to compete on that. So,
Have Aaron.
our next board
It's been 40 years.
This is something we all know. I know we slip sometimes, is do not discuss until we have a second. We've kind of done that several times, and I believe you're always really good at like, hey, we don't have a second yet because we're all transparent. One I thought was really good, because just me as a new president, is the president does not make a motion and they do not second a motion. So I thought that, I just always assumed presidents don't make a motion, but not seconding. So if there isn't a second, basically the motion will die.
Now, if I can ask for clarity, and I'm curious, was it best practice?
It was
best practice that the
They
president.
said there is nothing officially says that, but
Because the president can't make a
the
motion.
president can.
Second, and,
Mhm.
but it's just best practice to, as the president.
Right. It is best practice if the rest of the board is letting the motion die. Do you kind of so.
But it's you still have that opportunity.
You still have that opportunity. And I can't, if you're trying to get to the point of, no, you guys need to discuss, I can't see that it would be important.
If I may ask, I'm curious to know, Attorney Cross, your perspective. Because I know that the legal counsel that was represented had a particular viewpoint as well. I was just curious to to know what yours was. I've been meaning to ask you since we got back.
On that issue,
Yes, sir.
I don't disagree with anything Kim said. I think it's important to understand that the motion and the second are required to get the issue really on the table for discussion. And therefore, I never have felt like people are bound by the fact that they made a motion on an item and a second to support that. And it's to get it on the floor, open it up for discussion, and when and if you're ready for final action, call for the question.
But as far as the president making the motion,
I know. I'm just saying. So if I know I've seen it, but if there's just a lot of lag and no one's forthcoming, and it looks as if to get it on the floor quicker. I don't think it's going to happen very often.
Right. The next thing I thought was really important is what it means to table versus postpone. So we have tabled items to a later meeting, but tabling means till later in the current meeting. So if we want to postpone something, that would be to move it to the next meeting.
one thing that they did reference is that we could not table or postpone polls of business meeting, conduct an executive session, and come back and continue that business meeting. That's something that's a huge no.
Right. So I thought that was right because we tabled things and and then last thing I thought was really good that I heard feedback was if there is a vote that might be uncomfortable, might be a little controversial, some of the boards do like ballot voting. So basically we're sitting here, you're voting via ballot, it's passed forward, it's still read out loud who voted which way and reported. But I forget her name. I should have. Yeah. Was it? No, it was the board member.
From one time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot her name.
But she's found it very beneficial because sometimes there's folks that we have to take, and maybe whoever gets called, or if it's a roll call vote, or people might change their vote because they don't want to kind of stand up. I don't think we're like that at all. I think we all pretty much will. But I thought it was, I could hear from the room a lot of people were like, oh, you could do that. Because yes, you could take a ballot vote, but you're still going to read it. So I think that's just a useful tool if there is something that might be a little, what's the word?
Typically, you can do a voice vote on everything unless you're having a meeting that's a members attending virtually, in which case all votes have to be individual. I think the practice you're talking about, it gives a sense of immediacy to all votes, and it's not like somebody has to be the first one to take that walk off the plank.
Right.
And that was the context in which she had alluded to, was that there was a controversial topic, and so she and the board recognized that once one member either voted yay and nay, it seemed to influence the votes of others, whereas so as to create the opportunity to still people stand on their own vote.
Or it's going to be a split vote. Potentially just do it because doing a ballot might be helpful. So, but I thought that was really important. So, the last thing on my list is student representative. So technically this is a policy. So we're not necessarily, the goal is not to, to really debate the policy. That can be put into the policy meeting. We've talked about this several times about that there is a statute now, or maybe it's been around for a while, about having a student body representative as part of the board. So I just wanted to open that up to comments to see how everyone feels. The policy does sort of skew towards a student representative that might be part of student government that is really sort of coming to represent the student body. But I also see it as a student that's going to represent, that wants to know how the school board works, right? It wants to sort of, that's the path they're taking. Maybe it's public service to like give them the insight of that. So, and yes, I know we talked about how do you pick, how do you, there's a million things. This is really about like, is this something that we want to even explore? And then we could bring the policy and, kind of talk about the ins and outs of what that would look like, who would it be, how would we choose? We will get to that point, but I just wanted to open it up.
And Madam President, just for point of clarity, this is why I also couldn't find it while we were discussing it. This is not currently active.
It is not, no.
It's currently not active, but it's something that we could.
Right. Or a hybrid of whatever. So.
Yeah, I like the idea. I think I also think it should be the board's discretion, and I almost would lean towards accepting applications for the position. That way, you have in the spring you could solicit applications for the following year. I don't. You'd have to do public interviews, which in some ways I would rather not put the students through that, but that's part of the process. But I think that way, I think if you like it, I think that was mentioned BPA, which I'm not sure quite how that fits, but student council seems obvious. But I think you're also limiting yourself if you say it's the president or vice president or representative student council, or if you're giving them the choice. And so I think I would do. I mean, we have Mrs. Etzelmeyer could easily handle this whole thing, and we could have a month of applications. We could have interviews whoever wanted, and we could select. I think the kids would be a valuable experience for them, and an even more valuable experience for us.
I did state to this person that definitely help update board docs, sort of those other, things that it's a lot of, it's a lot of work. So.
I want to do some research on it because my initial thought was, oh yeah, we want the student represent because we want a student voice, but it's very complex, which I read about, and they actually have a school board readiness assessment. Are you ready to add a student representative to the board? So before we even think about policy or think about how we go about it, there's a lot to consider that I had not thought about, and I don't know if we are even ready. When I read through the 15 points, I couldn't check any of them that we were ready for. It's complicated. There's so many aspects that I hadn't thought of because just again, my initial thought is, yeah, we want a student voice, but there's a lot into it. There's a lot that we commit to, and there's a lot of training, and there's things that we would need to change. Not that we can't change or we wouldn't change, but also just it's complicated. So I would like to share this readiness plan, maybe with these checkpoints. A really great article from Illinois about, we know the great aspects of it, but we've got to be prepared. We need to wrap our head around everything that it entails and be committed to those things and have things in place before we even move to policy writing or somebody thinking of how we select and all of those things. It's complicated.
Yep, that's great. Any other thoughts?
I think maybe the board president should also be involved in choosing items that would be presented to the board in this agenda. That way there's, board itself and admin represented. But, yeah, I'd be interested to see those points that you're talking about. Definitely open to the idea.
I even thought about a starting point. Is it just the student government gets to come and present, maybe to the executive committee first, or open up that sort of bridge a little bit, to get to whatever it is. So.
No, I think student government's a good avenue, but also BPA. I mean, how many times have we had BPA come because they rock? They're doing a great job, and so I think either of those would be a natural fit. I do like the idea of having applications. It's not just okay, the student body president's going to be on the board. No, I would rather select. It may not be that that's even something of interest to the current student body president. I think this whole concept has a lot of potential for both them, for us. I really do love the component of that opportunity to practice governance. I would love for us to be able to train, teach someone who could go into our community later and give back on a board that they serve on in some regard. I would love to be a part of that. And yes, I do feel like we get insight and input then that's valuable for making the decisions that we have to make. So I think that all makes sense. Kristen, I'm a little nervous about what's on your page, but I think we need to do our due diligence. If we're not ready, we're not ready. And maybe that's goals for us.
I'd be curious too, because Steve or somebody at ISBA gets in touch with corporations that have implemented this and it's gone well.
Sure.
Or maybe both ways, gone well and not gone so well, but just try to get best practices and get in touch with these various corporations that, especially the ones that's implemented that worked well. How did you go about it? What was, did you have interviews? How did that process come to be? Kind of shape best practices of our own.
Yeah. I mean, part of me is excited. I want to adopt the puppy, so to speak, but I do know it's going to be a lot of work. So it's like, oh, this is great. Yeah.
You can't lose it.
I know. Yes.
Okay. Does anyone else have any comments and consensus? I'm sort of hearing of, I think it'd be great to read your checklist, Kristen. I can definitely reach out to Mr. Horton just to get some feedback.
I mean, you think about the strategic planning process. There's one kid that shows up, Fred Messenthal, and everybody's like, Fred, what do you think? I mean, every question, they want to know what he thinks. Because he's the only,
so amazing.
He's the only high school kid there. And so it just, from that experience, and he comes back, which is the most amazing part to me, because I sit at his table. I mean, he's a really neat guy, really smart and all that.
And he shares openly. I mean,
but yeah. But it's the dynamic of having one student there really is impactful.
They're just making us feel old. Okay, great. So I will move on. I think it's a good starting point, good conversation. So up next is 8.03, the redevelopment commission updates from member Stoltz.
Yeah. So, as the current representative for RDC, I had my first meeting on January 21st, and basically just trying to get caught up on what RDC is all about and what we're doing, and not much to report at this point, but we have our next meeting February 18th, and so I'll keep people posted. It's hard to be on a board or committee and not get a vote, I will say. It's like
one thing you might want to ask for, and maybe you already have it, and Kathy does a nice job, I will say that. But last 2 legislative sessions ago, 22, I guess it was, there was a requirement that went into effect at the end of 24 that the RDC had to develop a spending plan for the revenues they were going to have for the 2025. And as it says, if the matter is not on their spending plan, then they're not supposed to be able to spend money. I think now conventional wisdom is saying that they can go back and amend their spending plan if they need to. But at least it was an attempt to force an intentional look at budgeting your revenues. And with all due respect to the City of Richmond Redevelopment Commission, it was probably one of the poster childs why that kind of all got looked at, because it was the history is pretty much the history. But I think it's really improved. And I know we've had more of where I would say a real seat at the table, we being Richmond Community Schools. Well, since Karen was working with some of the people, Pete Zaleski was, and we've had our projects then become funded, which was unheard of for 20, 30 years. Doesn't matter what, whether red or a blue administration. I mean, it was just basically a slush fund for the city of Richmond's operating budget. Well, now it's more than that, and I think it's starting to work. And I think it's going to be good. So you'll be part of change.
I'll try to represent us well.
I can't say being on it last year, Kathy really does, even though we don't have a vote. Everyone on the board was always really receptive to
they've been,
anything that I had to say. And, you know, whether it's, you know, personal experience that I shared or RCS, kind of what we're going through. So I didn't know what to expect when I started either. Like, they're just not going to listen to me, but they do, and I definitely appreciated that.
Yeah, I received a very warm welcome. Actually was able to meet prior with Kathy Lucid and Beth Fields, and they caught me up on, I mean, I think we were there for an hour and a half of just like, okay, these are all the things and all the projects and everything. And then, you know, she said, and we've got money for you to spend, you know, which is, that's great, you know, so let's talk about that.
Right.
Yeah, so, yeah, great experience so far.
Great. Okay. Moving on to item 9, open forum. So obviously, this is just the space for board members, really, to share anything they'd like to share. Okay.
I've got a few things.
Okay, perfect.
No, just wanted to say that the visit to Charles, Krista and I were able to meet with Mr. Jones. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Wonderful, wonderful teaching environment that has been established there, and just enjoyed a tour and lots of just kind of, oh, this is this and this is this. I felt like it was definitely a highlight of my day. Just seeing all of the awesome things that are going on at Charles. Kristen, I didn't know if you had other things to add to that.
No, just to recognize Mr. Jones also for his work for the citywide spelling bee. So he did a lot of work.
Once again, my pleasure.
Yeah, so thank you for that.
Yes. And the spelling bee was a lot of fun. Krista and I were helping out with that. I did something very much out of my comfort zone as the announcer this year. I'm like, I'm good. I was practicing the words prior to. Some of them were a little bit like, oh, I don't know if I know this word. So it was a lot of fun. And then the meltdown again, was able to attend that, and RCS took the trophy, which is very fun. And I don't know if anybody had any of our chili. Did anybody get? Okay, thank you. Started right the chili because yes, I had tried it that night and it was excellent. Everybody was raving about it, and I truly felt proud that this is Chartwell's. They're the ones that are providing our students every day with the food. And I was like, that's right, Richmond. We're doing well by them. So yeah, just wanted to say that.
Can I ask Ms. Scalp a question? I know we have our menus, but is Chartwell's allowed to sort of like veer off of the approved things to really? Okay.
No, but what I will say is that they are at least annually, and they're trying to do more than annually. It just takes a little time to do this, but they do offer high school students the opportunity to test drive some new menu items, and the kids get to pick. So they just had one in the fall, and macaroni and cheeseology won. And so they had a faux option. They had macaroni and cheese. Last year barbecue won out. And so they get to pick the things that they like most, and then they add them to the menu. So they are looking at doing another one in the spring that will add. The kind of exciting part of this chili is they are looking to try. This is a big try. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. To submit the menu to the Chartwell's K-12 team to see if they can make it USDA compliant for the school menus. So it's kind of an exciting thing. I really can't give a shout out enough to Chris Henderson. He's one of the chefs. He's our assistant director, and he came up with the recipe. And so he has been a wonderful addition this year to us. He was at Warren Township prior to us, And he has worked with Jesse Devers, our director of dining services, and they have truly made some magic happen this year for our kids. So it's really exciting. If you haven't been to any of our cafeterias lately, definitely stop in because it is an experience that is not like anything I got to experience in school. So, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. We all can attest to the brisket as well.
Yes.
Well, it's been fun to sample some of those at the different meetings for our strategic planning. So
Brisket tacos.
yes. And then I will say last night, it wasn't Chartwell's, it was Pizza Hut, but Pizza Hut was served at the Vale Literacy Night community event, which had a great turnout. Do we know, Mrs. Markford, how many people we ended up having? Or?
I am not sure much about that much now.
No, I just, it was heartwarming just to see all of the parents and the guardians and the grandparents and the little siblings that was really cool to be with their older sibling. And yeah,
Getting library cards.
yes, getting their library cards and learning all about, like, this is what's what, and this is, I thought that was a wonderful idea.
And cool, Morrison Regional Library for
Mhm.
being
A host.
Yeah, absolutely. It was around the clock, and they were great. And to have the opportunity to read the Little Red Pen. That was amazing. I think Mr. Mops, I think his novel was the longest, but he got through it. And I think we appreciate him.
Okay, great. So moving on to item 10, preview of upcoming meetings and events. So our next school board meeting is Wednesday, February 26th, here in this boardroom at 5:30. And then we have the policy work session, which is Thursday, February 27th at 10 a.m. here as well. Moving to adjournment and the bell ringer.
Madam President, trustees, I'm going to ask that Mrs. Bridget Hazelbaker, our Director of Student Support and Communications, rejoin us at the podium with tonight's adjournments that.
Yeah, that's true. Yes. As another meltdown celebration is that Charles Elementary School placed third in the ice cream eating contest.
Yeah.
So my understanding is Mr. Jones' jaw and back teeth were quite close the next day. So yeah, a celebration I just wanted to highlight is on the 8th, last Saturday, we had many Richmond community school students go to solo ensemble contest, and 100% of our Richmond High School band members got golds. So our students are doing great things, not just band and orchestra, but just super proud of our kiddos. So thank you.
I would just be remiss, as we have done in the past, if I didn't recognize the passing of my Aunt Mary Wright, who was a nearly 30-year teacher here in Richmond Community Schools. Her funeral was a collection of appreciation for her service, not as an educator, but as a person. I know Member Stephen serenaded the homegoing celebration with his live sports, and I know that Aunt Mary, who played an integral part in me coming into the classroom and wanting to become an educator. I know she was very proud of the celebration. So her legacy still lives on. It's Fairview right now is one of our highest growing elementary schools, along with Charles, Star, Westview, Vale, and Crooksdale, and so many. But yeah, Aunt Mary she was amazing.
Perfect. Thanks. Meeting adjourned.